I think the kind of work I do, you want to make it relevant to young people, which is that, in the States we can get very caught up in sort of our daily stuff, but foreign policy is really important to the United States, and it's actually really interesting, and it can be fun. And so, the opportunity to talk to young people and talk a little bit about a career in the Foreign Service and the State Department is something that I love to do, because I love the work, and I think it's important for the country too. Message that I want to impart to all of you is, no matter what you do, whether it's Foreign Service or business, or whether you go to IBM, is sometimes things have to line up. There's a lot of luck involved, but if you set your eye, if you can sort of focus on the morass of things out there, and you pick one thing that might be doable, and you get the right people lined up, you can make a difference. And it may be small, it may be large, it may be unheralded, but it's something that you can celebrate and cherish. Something very extraordinary happened to me, which is that my junior year in high school, I went to the International School of Bangkok because my father was serving as the press attaché there. And so it was during that time that the Khmer Rouge were running Cambodia, and there were all these grisly stories about life in Cambodia, and the cities being emptied of inhabitants, and everybody being sent into the countryside to work, and this sort of glorification of the agricultural collective, and sort of very harsh communist approach. And so I was very struck by that, because looking around and living in Bangkok, which at that time was very peaceful and placid, and yet you sort of knew that the landscape with the green rice paddies and these magnificent trees was very similar to what was happening 100 miles to the east in Cambodia, where people were being tortured and families were being split up and children were being asked to execute their parents. I mean, just extraordinary things. So I was very sort of moved by that whole experience. And so after 2 years of college, I decided that I was going to take time off and go and work in refugee camps, and sort of get a first-hand look at what had been going on there. And I was fortunate to get a job working in Thailand, and I worked for the U.S. refugee program for about 1.5 years, and I spent most of that time working in the refugee camps and talking to refugees about their stories, about how their lives have been displaced. These were refugees from Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. And I spent time in the hill tribe camps up in northeastern Thailand, and lived for a while in the refugee camp, sort of getting an experience of how refugees live as refugees. And so this was, I'd say, one of the formative experiences of my life, and I didn't intend it to be like that. Of course, these things just happen, and you try to take advantage of them. You try and understand the significance of it, which may not appear to you right at that moment. But this is, in a way, what has driven me forward into the work that I do. And then thinking through what I wanted to do with my life, as I'm sure many of you are, I thought about, well, there are all these factors that propel refugees to flee their countries, and we can't control these things. And I could be on the receiving end, where I'm doing relief work and interviewing refugees and helping bring food to refugee camps and that thing, or I could try to get on the other side and work on the policy end. And so it was that piece that really drove me, connecting from my childhood, the good, very positive experiences I had living in Japan and being part of a Foreign Service family. So connecting that with my intellectual interests drove me into the Foreign Service. So in 1993, I took the exam and joined up, and I've really never looked back. Well, they are sort of youth ambassadors, and so they bring their own experience, even if they haven't spent a lot of time, say, in Pakistan, but they may have grown up in a Pakistani household in the States, and so they have probably more familiarity and more affinity for Pakistan than they may even realize. And so there's no way to do this puzzle. There's no set way to do this puzzle. There's no formula, and it's actually more of an art than a science. So you want to have people with all kinds of different perspectives. And sometimes our ambassadors who go to Pakistan, for example, have never been to Pakistan, but that doesn't mean they can't be a good ambassador in Pakistan. But you need for a complicated relationship like this, you need to draw on all the resources that you can. So I think, young people who have an interest or have experience or exposure of the language all have, something to contribute. But I think from our side, we feel that this is a very, very important relationship, and we have to get it right. And I spent a fair bit of time traveling around the U.S. talking to Pakistani Americans about the importance of this relationship, and not just to explain it in terms of its sort of strategic context, but to get the people-to-people conversation going more, and to get businesses and young people and entrepreneurs to talk and exchange information and to do business, and what can we do from this side to help create jobs in Pakistan. If the strategic aspect is not going so well, what about the economy? What can the U.S. do to help the economy? What can the U.S. do to provide training and share our expertise with journalists and business people in Pakistan? And what can we do to promote trade so we can get away from this aid-driven relationship, which I think both sides want to do? So all of these are the questions that go into sort of daily life. I have my colleague Sarah Peck here, who's really integral part of our office. And so we're a team of some 20 or 22 people who work in the Pakistan office for Mark Grossman, Ambassador Mark Grossman, who replaced Richard Holbrooke last year. And we're a kind of an unusual bureau in the State Department in that we only work on two countries, that's Afghanistan and Pakistan. And that kind of reflects both Holbrooke's vision that these two countries warranted their own sort of special bureau, and that the huge amount of resources go into driving the policy for these two countries. And you could see we make a lot of mistakes. I mean, you just have to understand that it's a very, very difficult thing to get right. Nobody seems to have quite the right formula. It's all about getting things. I think it's about understanding the situation at a given time, getting the right people, and promoting, building trust, because there's been an absence of trust between the two countries for all kinds of reasons. And we're all very dedicated in my office and within the State Department under Hillary Clinton's leadership in trying to drive this relationship to a better place. And so I hope all of you in some way who care about this relationship will find some way in your lifetime, not necessarily now or in your next job, will find some way in your lifetime to help this relationship, because it is critical. And for those of you who have Pakistan connections, and we need your expertise, we need your engagement. It's not just going to be run by folks like myself or Sarah in the State Department. We need people from all walks of life and who work in different sectors of society to contribute and offer their ideas and expertise. So with those words, I will open it up to any comments or questions.